Welcome back to OpenLine, talking about taxes. And we have with us tax specialist Dr. Friday. And yes, the tax deadline has passed, but what if you need an extension? Or what should you be doing for next year? Or what if you're going to be audited? All these different things,
Absolutely,
right?
And all those things can happen to you. If you filed your taxes, good job, but be prepared that the IRS is not finished processing them. So it could take 2 years. The IRS has 2 years to look at your taxes, so theoretically, you know, we're looking at 13 and 14 right now. 15 hasn't even really come in, so when audits come out, you know, that's what we're looking at the moment. So just, you know, you can't really necessarily fully breathe easily for a few years.
Now, people ask about taking money out of retirement, like their IRA or their 401k or whatever it may be.
Probably one of the biggest mistakes people make, in my opinion. Now, I'm not a financial planner, so take this as tax advice, but keep in mind that most money we put aside in an IRA or 401k is tax deferred. We haven't paid taxes on it yet. So when we see that money sitting over there and we're in a money crunch for some reason, even paying the IRS, when you take that money back out, you're going to have to pay taxes. So how much? Because a lot of times they'll only pay the 10%, which sounds like a lot of money. But remember, if you're 59 and a half or younger, you know, you're going to pay 10% penalty. So you have paid zero in federal withholdings at this point. All you have paid is the penalty. So that means you need to be taking 20, 30% out before you actually take the money and give it to somebody or spend it or give it to the IRS, because you've got 20% tax bracket plus the penalty. So you could be looking at 30%. That's a lot of money. So think about taking money out of retirement before you do it, and talk to your tax person, because they can usually give you a really good number based on prior years how much money you would actually need to pay in taxes. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
But there are people that get in a bind.
Sure, and it always sounds like a great thing, but you know, sometimes it may be easier to get a loan, you know, the penalties and stuff, and remember, loans aren't taxable, so you know, it may just be that it looks like an easy fix, but maybe it will cost you. In many cases, we end up with years of tax issues because of doing something like that.
So you're a tax specialist.
I'm an enrolled agent.
This is what you do. Mm-hmm. Do you think it will ever get easier to file taxes, or do you think it will just get harder and harder and harder?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you. Based on my 20 years of doing taxes, I have not seen many simplifications. They have tried to simplify one thing, but by doing it, they often complicate it to try to accumulate a certain group of people or whatever. So there's always exceptions to exceptions in the tax law. So that's why I try never to just say this is what you're going to pay or this is what you have, because you know, capital gains can go 0 to 30%, you know, I mean, but most people say it's only 15. There's always exceptions to almost everything in the tax code. So if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're single, if you're married, there's all kinds of penalties and exceptions. So no, I don't see that happening.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
You do hear.
I would love to see like a consumption tax or something but you know, there's just too many special interests involved in the tax code to ever actually simplify it.
Because you hear that in a political season.
Absolutely.
There'll be someone who will say, I think we should abolish the IRS.
That's the number one. Oh, they love it. And in our circles, we're all sitting there going, yes, do it. Because a lot of people think, oh, wow, tax people are not going to want the IRS abolished. But think, there's always going to be somebody needed to account for the money that's going to the government. The government has to be paid to cover the military and stuff. So it's never going to end. It's just a different type of collection. But it's not going to happen because the IRS has too much power over each and every one of us. We all have a small amount of fear. Even myself, and I deal with the IRS on a daily basis. There's always that healthy amount of fear I like to refer to, because they can disrupt my life.
Oh yeah,
you know?
There's absolutely.
They can put liens and they can put levies and they can seize properties. They have their own court system, so they don't have to necessarily take the steps where if you owe me money or I owe you money, we have to go through a fairly long process, and there's ways of stopping it. The IRS circumvents all that, and we can go a different direction. They can immediately go into your bank account, basically, you know. I can't get into your bank account no matter how much you owe me. You know, it's just not going to happen.
And I've seen candidates say, okay, we should be able to fill out our taxes on the back of a postcard.
Yeah, and that happened back in the early 1900s when tax returns. I have a picture of one, and it was only taxing people like 1% and only for people that made more than $5,000 in those days and all this, and it's cool. But yeah, not going to happen.
There's just too much.
Yeah. You'd have to basically, as some people say, you'd have to basically abolish and restart. You could never go backwards and wipe out, because there's always somebody that's affected when you eliminate any tax. I don't care what it is. It's corporate America, it's individuals, whatever, and nobody wants to pay more to pay less later or anything else, and no one wants to give the government that kind of power anyways.
And you talk about the power the government has, and that we all have some fear when we're contacted in any way by the IRS.
Yeah.
And that's why the scam works.
Oh, it's
because they call up and they say, we're with the IRS, and then people just melt.
Oh, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do
freeze
it?
Or do
I mean,
whatever.
you know, and you know, give me your social security number, give me your name, give me this, and of course, you know, just those letters, IRS, and a lot of people are sitting there going, okay, my name's this, my address is this and this, you know, and they're immediately responding, and that's the worst thing you could do. And a revenue officer, trust me, these guys are smart, they're good, but a revenue officer is never going to ask you those questions. Never going to. They know the answer to those questions. They may ask you for the last 4 digits. They may ask you for a case ID. They may ask you for something else. They're never going to ask you those 20 questions that you're going to get from a scam artist.
So it's interesting to me that even somebody like you there is this fear when you deal with them. So do you see them being more aggressive or less aggressive?
You know,
are they tougher to deal with? What are they like?
Honestly, I mean, they have a set of rules, and there's a certain way, a pecking order of which they're going to do something. So the IRS is normally very open as long as the communication is open. So as long as you're talking and providing them with the documentation and showing that goodwill, you're going to find out most revenue officers are just like you and me. They live real lives. They do real things, so they can understand some of that. Then, of course, the ones that you really hate are the ones on the phone, right? Because you don't know them, they don't know you. You're a number, and all they have this checkoff list that they're going through, and you can't bypass any of it. And so your best thing, if you get a butthead, hang up the phone and call back, because their job is to collect. And they're great. They're like credit card collection companies and everything else, right? So if it gets too bad, just hang up the phone. Guaranteed, you're going to call back and get a different person.
And are there more people doing that than there have been? More agents or fewer agents?
According to the IRS, there's fewer agents.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So they've had to do a lot of cutbacks. There's a lot more automation going on, it seems like to me. So it's harder in my profession because as an enrolled agent, we try to deal with things. And if you're trying to deal with the mail, you're talking 6-8 months sometimes to get a case set up and deal with. Meanwhile, the computers, which are doing the collection, are automatically sending out love letters every 90 days saying this and that. So, you know, people are freaking out because like, oh my God, we're going to lose the house, honey, we're going to lose everything, you know, and you've got to call back and get a hold and that kind of stuff. It takes an hour and a half.
For the people you deal with, what is the biggest reason they get in trouble? So they get audited and then they get in trouble?
Divorce.
Oh, really?
Marriage leads to none. I'm not married, but probably number one reason is divorce or getting sick. Something happens, right, that stops the flow of money. Two people are married, been living under this combined income, end up divorced, end up with child support payments, things like this. The IRS gets missed because immediate reaction is, let's take care of all these things. The IRS doesn't really say a whole bunch for a while, and then they start coming in. So those are the situations. Or someone gets sick and their medical bills, or they're unable to work, they're not able to make the payments that they were making before. And even though you're sick, sometimes you still owe tax dollars. You know, I mean, you're still making a certain amount of money or whatever. So those are the kinds of things. And, you know, to be honest, the IRS has some compassion, but many times it's not as compassionate as you might like to think, the code. So there are ways of getting put into non-collectible, which is what I would suggest you doing so that the IRS isn't sending you a ton of letters and putting more stress if you're sick, or get into a payment plan, get into a partial payment plan. Once you're in that, then the government isn't hounding you every 5 days with another certified letter or going to your boss or sending things out to people that then they know that you have IRS issues, and that's embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
And for businesses, small businesses, they can take your entire receivables from somebody. So, you know, that would, because most of us don't, you know, especially if you're in a trucking business or something, and someone owes you 50 grand and you owe the IRS 50 grand, they have to send that money to them. You now can't make payroll. You now can't pay your bills because obviously all that wasn't profit.
So dependents in a divorce, that's probably, would both maybe file and claim the dependent,
and that's a number. That is a big thing. That's always, because on court papers, the IRS does not care what the court papers say. First in, first out.
Oh, so, really? The first one to file?
First one to file. is in. So basically, the ex that basically says, oh, you didn't pay me, or the children live with me, so I'm claiming them no matter what, whatever the scenario is, and you have court documents and you're current with your child support and you should be entitled to the children. I just want to let you know you can win that battle with the IRS. We do it all the time, and then the ex end up getting mad because they don't only have to pay back that, but if they got earned income credit, they can get kicked out of the program because they lied. So there is some recourse to getting that money back to you, and you can get it back with interest. So there is ways of doing it.
So that's one of those big issues.
It's a major issue because a lot of times people think, well, hey, I got it. The IRS says I have it, so it's okay. And then the other person that really should have it files, their taxes get rejected, and then they hire someone like me to get their money.
All right, I want to start talking about next year. So let's say
2016, baby.
We messed up this year and we were scrambling at the last minute. We didn't have our receipts. And you say keep your receipts.
Yeah,
that's one of those things I plan to do, but I never do.
You got cell phones now that can turn receipts into PDF. You've got scanners that are like little things that you just scoop across it. There's very little excuses for someone like yourself not to have your receipts in place and doing it on a monthly basis. Trying to do something at the end of the year. I don't know about you, but I have a tough time remembering what happened 2 or 3 months ago. Giving me a receipt that says something on it back in January or something is not going to happen. Besides the fact that some of those receipts will fade. Petrol receipts, sometimes certain grocery receipts, whatever. If I went shopping for a fundraiser or something, you want to scan all that in, put it in a folder. If you're not a scanner, get yourself a little organizer, right? You put in and organize it by category. Don't organize it by month, because by month does nothing for us. Okay? I want to know, how much did you spend in contributions? How much did you spend in mileage? How much did you spend in food that are deductible? That's the kind of thing. So if you just get yourself a little organizer, throw those receipts in there. I don't care if they're by date. That doesn't make a difference to the tax person, but then we can pull those out, run a 10-key, and we're good for the year. And that way you're not running around the house looking under the mattress everywhere to find a receipt that you had, but you can't find.
Oh yeah, for those contributions or whatever it may be.
Well, always. So this way, you make a copy of the check that before you send it, you throw it in there, so that way if you had to go back, you could pull it because it cleared the bank. You have a copy of the check before you mail it to the person, not waiting until they give you the letter, because you're going to forget that person existed. You're going to send a $20 check to Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts may or may not send you a letter thanking you for it. And what do you do with them if they do? Where's the organizer? Just saying, you need that.
And is that
organizer.
the biggest frustration for a tax preparer? Or what would it be? What would that be?
That is number one, because everyone always comes in and says, I know this, I know that. But I don't know it, and you're wanting me to then go and represent you possibly later, and we have no documentation for it. So it really is important to get that organizer together, so at the end of the year, you just have to sit down one day, add up all those, put them together. Some people will be really good. They'll do Excel spreadsheets. That's not necessary. You don't have to have that kind of detail. You need, in an audit, physical receipts. That's what you need. And, the IRS is going to want, and also individuals. Every year you need to download all of your bank statements, because not every bank goes back 24 months. And if you get audited, that's what we'd have to go backwards. And a lot of times people are like, oh, it's a digital, the bank already has all of them. Well, you may end up having to pay money because two things. One, the bank doesn't save the checks. The little cute little copies they give you that you can download at first, those kind of wear away after about 6 months. And then you can have the statements for another year, but they don't go like 24. We need physical bank statements with copies of the cute little checks, because if we get audited, we need representation, and you need me to be able to prove something.
So how many times do you think you'll be representing, because you have a number of clients, you said some number, several hundred. How many of those do you think will be audited and you will be up there face to face with the IRS? How much?
I'm fortunate, knock on wood, and this is probably not a good thing because who knows who's watching. So far in 20 years, I've only had 4 people audited.
Okay.
And that's just the that's in our firm. It doesn't have anything to do, and I could be getting up with a bunch of people audited, I suppose, this year for some reason because of random audits, and I just said that on the TV. But I do represent individuals. I will say the number one people that are audited are individuals that prepare their own tax return. Now that may be because I get those clients, because if I prepared someone's tax return and there is an audit, obviously I'm going to still be there to represent them, so they're not going to leave the person that prepared it. But if you prepared it yourself, you need representation. So I see more of those. And you know, knock on wood, we keep a nice flow coming through the door.
Before we go to break, let's
Thank you, IRS.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go to Tina. Tina?
Hello?
Excuse me. Go right ahead, Tina.
Got them all choked up.
Yeah.
I have a question for the lady. For somebody who has only gets $13,000 of Social Security, somebody told me that I should be able to take out some pension or IRA up to $7,000, and I don't have to pay taxes on that.
Well,
Is that true?
yeah, it would actually be, if you're single, are you over the age of 65?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so if you're single and you're over the age of 65, you'd be able to take about $11,000 probably out tax-free, maybe a little less because you have the provisional income, but I would say yes, you would be able to. We play that game a lot with several of our clients, with the financial planners. I would suggest contacting, if you have the money with a financial planner, or even calling us. We do it for free with some people over the phone, but we could tell you exactly how much money you could draw tax-free. It's wonderful. You put the money in tax deferred and you take it out tax deferred. What a better plan than that? Even if you don't need it, roll it into a financial.
He did.
Okay, well, if you need it, that's great. But some clients, they're good. They don't really have it. But this way you can roll it into an after-tax account and people can inherit the money, or you can use it whatever you want, but it's tax-free. That's all I'm saying. Start taking it out while you can, and as long as it's tax-free, you can still grow it tax-free on the other side.
So it sounds like you can do that, Tina.
That's
Thank
a great
you.
plan, Tina.
Good question. Good question. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back and answer more of your questions. If you want to call, there's the number pointing over there to the screen. It's 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. We'll be back right after this.